Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the March 2026 Silver Lining Mid-Month Meeting. And we send a massive welcome to Jennifer Godber, who is an occupational therapist and a PhD student from Coventry University. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. I look really blurry on my screen. I don't know if I do in yours as well, but it's probably a good thing. I have got a few PowerPoint slides, so I'll try to share those just to see if they help at the same time. If it doesn't work, it's not a biggie. Let's give it one try.
Okay.
Can you see those?
Yeah.
Perfect. So just a very quick bit of background. Really, I am an occupational therapist. So I've been working since 2004, mainly in the NHS. I don't know how many of you know what an occupational therapist is. I think a few of you might have come across them on your journeys, but I'll explain a bit more in a bit, and feel free to ask any questions. But I'm wearing another hat at the moment as well, and that's a PhD researcher. So I'm at Coventry University and researching or looking to design and test a support program for partners of people living with acquired brain injury. And it's really focusing on things like intimate relationship and relationship change after brain injury. So I'll give you a bit more of an overview of both of those things throughout the next little bit of time. To start off, for those of you who aren't fully aware, what is an occupational therapist? Well, we're really here to support people to do the things that they want to and need to do every day. So it's about help overcoming challenges with everyday tasks. And this can be really individualized. So for some people, it might be things like leisure activities, like getting out hiking, cycling, so on. For other people, it might be returning to work, or it might be the basic things that we all need to do every day, like get washed and dressed, or do the cleaning, cook a meal, and so on, do the food shop. So I feel privileged, actually, for having the opportunity to work with people and get involved with some of the things that they love. And I've loved my career for being able to be fishing one day, jumping on the bus the next, in the supermarket the next, and we can pretty much call anything rehab, which I really like. I'm ashamed to say I didn't know a lot about Silver Linings brain injury, but just looking at everything that Silver Linings brain injury do, I think it's really quite core to like occupational therapy and like just out getting people doing things and engaged in things. And that's a lot of the philosophy of the profession, really. So you can find us working in loads of different settings. Most people have come across us in the NHS. If you've been in hospital or had any brain injury rehab, we work alongside people like physios and speech therapists, part of the MDT. And it's usually a consultant or GP that can refer, or another healthcare professional. We also work in community rehab teams as well, or out in the community. And there's occupational therapists that work in social services as well. Quite often they're interested in things like the environment and how that impacts someone's ability to do things. And they'll often be involved in things like major adaptations or sourcing piece of equipment so someone's able to do the things they need to do. OTs also work privately as well. So I put a link there to a kind of directory for private therapists. And usually people want to or go down that route, maybe if there's a long waiting list for NHS therapy, or there's something specific that they want to work on that a kind of NHS therapist doesn't have the capacity to do. Often NHS services are quite time limited, so they might work in like certain timeframes of interventions, and reality recovery doesn't work like that. So it's often quite hard to meet someone's needs in the time frame available. So how did I transition from occupational therapist to researcher, and why? Really, I saw an advert by Coventry University, and it was looking for a student to work on this project about supporting relationships and partners after brain injury. And that really spoke to me because I've been privileged to go into a lot of people's own homes, but I've been able to observe that rippling nature of brain injury and the impact it sometimes has on the family members or the partner of the person with the brain injury, as well as the person with the brain injury. I also knew there'd often been an elephant in the room when I'd been out visiting people. And while as doctors, nurses, therapists, we're really good at talking about a lot of personal stuff, you know, like continence or, I don't know, seeing people naked when we're supporting them to wash and dress. What we're really bad at, I think, a lot of the time in this country is talking about things like intimate relationships and sex lives. And actually, I think there's often been an unmet need that I can reflect on. So I saw this advert and I thought, do you know what? I think there's a need here, and I'd like to be involved. So why? I think, like I've just touched on, sex and intimate relationships are pretty taboo. So we don't really talk about them at the best of times, and certainly not after ill health. Often they're not the priority. And by that, I mean not the priority for the person that's maybe unwell or had an injury. But, you know, it might be that you're going to an appointment and there's 10 things that you've got to talk about that might feel a bit more urgent at that point in time. Or it's hard to justify that talking about them, you know, with a certain professional. And responsibilities are often unclear as well. So whose job is it to support these after brain injury? I think professionals are often really worried about something wrong. And I think couples or individuals are often worried about saying something and, you know, causing embarrassment or so on. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to. And like I said, I think within kind of rehab services, we're not always very good at considering the wider impact and maybe partners' needs as well. So within our research world, we're kind of talking about a few different terms, and I just wanted to unpick them more. So I feel quite comfortable with kind of, or I often refer to intimacy rather than sex or so on. And I think really because it's this umbrella term, so it's not just about sex, it's not just about physical intimacy, but there's loads of other ways that we're intimate within relationships. So even for couples that maybe weren't sexually active before a brain injury, they might find it hard to find that closeness and connection after a brain injury, or there might be challenges. So that's what our research is interested in as well. So it's the physical stuff that might be holding hands, it might be cuddling, might be walking down the road, you know, with an arm around one another. It might be emotional intimacy. So that's that ability to feel understood and supported and really safe to be vulnerable. Intimacy can also be intellectual. So, you know, stimulating each other's minds. It might be watching a TV program and having a good chat about the plot afterwards, or, you know, seeing something at the theatre, or reading an article and talking about it in the newspaper. Intimacy can also be experimental, so having shared experiences, doing things together and creating shared memories. So holidays, I don't know, renovating the house, just simple everyday things as well, shared experiences. And finally, intimacy can also be spiritual. So those meanings, those shared moments of meaning and connection. And that can be as simple as, you know, being out in nature together, or it might be things like religion for some couples and shared beliefs. And within the research, we talk about sex and sexual activity or sexual function, but we try and favour sexual well-being, because it shifts that focus just from kind of function and what our body parts can and can't do, and also that kind of medicalised stuff around fertility and infections, much more to a broader understanding of sexual well-being. So again, things like feeling safe and secure to be intimate, to be respectful of people's preferences and practices, and to feel accepted, and self-esteem as well, feeling good about your body and being in control. Comfort as well, and self-determination, so doing what you want to and not feeling pressured, and having some forgiveness towards yourself and others, and taking time and accessing support to recover if and when things go wrong. So I think we kind of wanted to embrace that broader understanding of kind of sexual well-being and intimacy. So we've really invited people to be involved in the research that maybe are and aren't sexually active, but just within relationships. So there's a team of us doing different things at Coventry University. My supervisor is Dr. Hayley Wright, and she has completed a trial that focuses on people with brain injury called Hope for ABI. And she developed an online course for people living with brain injury that looked at things like dating and relationships after brain injury. And then there's me, and I'm focusing more on the partners, and we've designed something specifically for partners. Partners have said that while they feel it's important to do things as a couple, they also wanted a space for themselves where they could maybe say things and explore things free from concern of causing any upset or saying something wrong. And we've got Beth, and she's designing something for professionals, starting with therapists, really to encourage them to have conversations and have these discussions in things like rehab settings. And a bit different, but we've got Sat there, and she's focusing on younger people who might have brain injuries, their teachers and their families, and how to support them more broadly. So the key things I think that tie us all together is we're all looking to support produce something online to support people online. And we're all very much taking approaches where we design things with people with lived experience. So, for example, I've worked with partners, I've worked with people living with brain injury, and I've worked with psychologists and speech and language therapists and occupational therapists to try and put the partners program together. What have we learned? So these are some really broad kind of, I suppose, headlines that brain injury impacts intimate relationships. So although there's some physical changes, people usually say to us, we can get our head around those and we can problem solve those. But often for partners or couples, it's the subtle stuff. So it's the changes in roles, the changes in power balance, maybe those changes in self and things like that confidence again. And the changes how people connect on those different levels. So whether it's that we don't do the same activities we used to, or it's harder to sit and hold hands, or so on. There is very little out there in the way of support. And many people experience a sense of loss, whether that's for the relationship they had, the life they had, or maybe the plans they had for the future. And it does take a lot of time and effort to adapt and reconnect and redefine that intimacy. But people tell us it can be a lot better because of that process. Lots of people need help with it as well, though. So people have said that they've benefited from help individually and as a couple. And we've been surprised that actually a lot of people are willing to talk about this, and that there is some comfort in sharing, and also people in similar situations. So another thing that we've tried to build in some of the programs that we're running is peer support, so that you can learn from others that are in a similar situation to yourself. So just so you get a better idea of the Hope for Partners program that I'm running, it's an online course, and we've said it's to navigate changes in relationship and intimacy after brain injury. It's 8 weekly sessions, but we kind of drop one a week. So you don't have to be doing it at a set time or a set place. And anyone can do it so long as they've got access to either a laptop or a tablet or a mobile phone. And it's basically this range of information and tips and activities. So videos, group discussions, reflections, and we kind of present everything as optional. So no one has to get involved in anything if they don't want to. You kind of pick and choose what's relevant to you and your situation. Lots of opportunities to connect with others in like forum chats or reflections, and the support from a facilitator. We're actually trialing the full course starting next Wednesday. So if you know anyone that might be wanting to or appropriate to take part, please spread the word. There's still a couple of spaces remaining. We've been really impressed with the response we've had. But we have got a couple more spaces left if you know any partners that might want to take part. And I think, thank you very much. I've put my email at the top there, but then of the other researchers at Coventry University. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Does anyone have any questions for Jennifer?
So if one wanted to become an occupational therapist, what's the route?
Like professional training?
Yes.
So it used to be that you had to do a degree and go to university and kind of that formal route. But in recent years, they've started the apprenticeship training as well. So that's starting to become more popular, where rather than kind of spend months in uni on modules and then go on clinical placements, where you might be in a hospital or social services or so on, you actually learn much more on the job, which I think probably better suits a lot of people. Because I have been out of the work world for a couple of years, or the OT world, I'm not quite confident saying which universities are doing the apprenticeship route, but I know there are quite a few. And I think that financially can work better for people as well, because there's some support with, it's not like you're paying student fees. I think you get some salary as well for your apprenticeship.
Oh, you get salary for
I
that?
believe. I'll find a link to becoming an apprentice and I can share that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph. So we've got Anna would like to ask a question. Go ahead, Anna.
Hi, I was just wondering, because it can be a difficult subject for people to talk about, how you go about kind of building that trust and that closeness in the group where they feel able to talk about this subject.
Yeah. So within the course that we're running, the online course, we're letting everyone have that, I suppose, that anonymity, so they can use make a name up for themselves. They don't have to put a photo up or anything, so they've got that privacy. And a lot of the interaction is text-based, so that they feel a bit safer to share. Within our research activities, so we led quite a lot of groups on like co-design groups where we maybe got like 6 or 10 people together, and we again didn't put any pressure on anyone to share, but we found that actually it was much more about giving people permission. So if you want to contribute, you can. If you don't have to, only say what's comfortable, and kind of having those, I think creating a safe space was probably the most important thing. When people felt safe and free from judgment, then they did open up and they did talk quite a lot. So there's something called the PLICIT model, which has been designed for healthcare professionals to have these conversations, but it's really starts with giving people permission to talk. So, if you were wanting to approach this with someone after brain injury, just saying, I know things like relationships or sex lives can be affected by brain injury. If that's something you ever want to talk about, I'm happy to have that conversation with you. And we found that even just leaving that opening can be enough for maybe someone to go away or say, think actually you're okay to have that chat with, and that's acceptable, and they might come back to you later. So you can do it like that, or maybe then follow that up with more direct questioning. I don't know if that helps or
it does. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So G, you've got a question.
Yeah, I've got a two-part question. Does yourself or your colleague Beth go to like GP's practice if clients have difficulties opening, any issues, their health or personal issues to GP consultants?
Yeah, that's an area we haven't really pushed. We were kind of like, I suppose, research world, it's always kind of where do you start? And I think the idea was to start first with therapists, and Beth's really focusing first on occupational therapists because we're interested in everyday activities, and things like sex and relationships are an everyday activity. And certainly how much more exciting would rehab be if you're setting goals around dating, or if you're setting goals around, I don't know, cooking your wife dinner or being intimate together. You know, those would be so much more meaningful goals and often some of the ones that are set within therapy. So I think that's kind of where we were looking first. But yes, I think ideally is that it would then be rolling that out to or more professionals and GPs, neurologists. And, you know, I think what we try to do within a lot of our sessions is look at who might know most about certain things. So, you know, we know a lot of people have fears about, you know, if I have sex, will my blood pressure increase? And is there a risk of me having another stroke or something like that? Or are my risks of seizures increased if I'm, you know, very sexually active and so on? So we know there's a lot of medical questions or side effects of medication or things like erectile dysfunctioning and things. So I think there's lots of kind of, this isn't about one profession. Like, I think it needs to be a whole team approach again. And there's different things that different professions might lead on when looking at these things.
And probably going forward in your research plan, would be going into like probably Beth or someone going into the workforce as a professional, not at that stage.
Sorry, you froze my end at the beginning of that question, so I didn't get all of that.
Would Beth or yourself go into the workforce as a profession to talk to the employers or anything like that in the future, going for, you know, future expansion?
So we're trying to talk anyway. We're trying to talk to anyone that will talk to us, really. So we've been to a few conferences. So we presented at the Stroke Conference, the Stroke Forum a few years ago. So there was lots of medics there. But yeah, we're really willing to talk to anyone. I think it's yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you, G. Okay, anyone else have any questions for Jennifer? So I've got a question, Jennifer. So in terms of self-referring, how easy is it for someone to self-refer to an occupational therapist?
I think it's like most things, it's a bit of a postcode lottery, isn't it? So things like social services occupational therapists, if you're looking to do like adaptations or need equipment, that's often self-referral, and you can go onto the government website, find your local social services and self-refer usually through a route there. If it's about ongoing rehab and you want someone to more like help you with things like practicing getting or support to get back to work or a leisure activity or so on, then that might be more your neuro rehab team, and they tend to have I don't know, it's more area dependent, I think, then whether you can self-refer or not. I know in the area I used to work in, it used to be, well, we'd often meet people initially after their brain injury, we'd kind of work on something together and then give them a bit of freedom to go away and get on with that, and then say, right, well, when the next thing comes up, you're welcome to come back to us. Does that make sense? So I think it just depends a bit more on your local area. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Jennifer or points of discussion?
No.
You're okay. Okay. So yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer, for speaking to us today. If anyone would like to contact you, are you happy for me to share your email?
Absolutely, please.
Okay.
And I hope, you know, what the kind of tools we're designing now, we're not sure how useful they are, and that's what this research is about. So the hope is that if we do get some positive
In fact,
results,
I was going to ask, do you need guinea pigs?
yeah, I mean, so I think Hayley's bit of work where she's just trialed her program for people with brain injury, that first initial trial has ended, and I think she's trying to secure funding to do a wider, bigger trial. So I can certainly let Silver Linings know if and when that's going ahead, and to pass that information around. Yes, I'm definitely looking for partners at the moment. If anyone knows any partners who might be interested, and you can email me directly for that. But like I say, this is kind of the first trial, and the dream would be that if they're deemed to be kind of useful, then we can find a way to fund them and have them accessible to people, you know, and freely available to people. So we can certainly keep Silver Linings updated with the research progress and the results of these studies.
I've got one more question back of that. Have you done? Have you designed a model toolkit for professionals, or is that still being developed?
Design the model. So
Yes.
there are a few out there actually. So what's quite interesting is there's a few different ones. So the Plicit model is one. I think there's another one whose name's escaped me at the moment. So I don't think there's a problem having a model. For some reason, there seems to be other barriers, and I think often it's personal barriers, it's kind of environmental barriers, or kind of organisational barriers that are stopping professionals having these conversations. Professionals often seem to say, well, I think it should be up to the person with the brain injury or the couple or the partner to initiate the conversation. But often I think that just might feel too overwhelming for people and they prefer the professional to bring it up. So there seems to be lots of barriers despite these models being available. They're not new models, they've been around since like the 80s, 90s. So there's just some cultural barriers, I think, to stopping people. I think there's so much concern about causing offence that professionals often think, oh, I just won't have that conversation in case I cause offence. But actually, you often, I think, do more damage by not having the conversation.
Is it a different way of approaching a conversation that people are having difficulties with? Is
Yeah,
it a
I
different
think
way
so.
of it?
Do you say the difficulties approaching the conversation?
Yeah, with a difficult approaching the conversation or breaking down the barrier of conversation as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm trying to think if there's anything I haven't said. I think there's an assumption it's everyone else's job a lot of the time. And really the problem is it's no one's job. The good news, I think, is I don't know how much you're all aware of things like the NICE guidelines, RCP guidelines.
National Institute for Clinical Excellence.
Yeah. So they've got guidelines for professionals on things like stroke rehab, on brain injury rehab. And all of these things are starting to include now, like people should be asked about their sexual function, their relationships, they should be offered support. So we can now turn to professionals a bit more and say, actually, the rehab guidelines by NICE, by the Royal College of Physicians and so on, say these things need to be addressed. It's your duty to be addressing these. So I think there's a bit more clout starting to come out now, whereas previously it wasn't backed up so much by guidance. So I think that's a benefit.
Yeah, thank you. Jennifer, one of our members has put a question in the chat, so I'll just read it to you. Some of us have had injury in childhood, before puberty, or even in babyhood at 1 month old in my case. What research is there into our experiences, including challenges in intimacy? Values, of course, have an effect, and these can change over time.
Yeah, thank you. That's a brilliant question. And I don't know so much about that area because it's not what I've been looking into. Satvir might be a good person to be in contact with, and I've included her email at the end there. The little I know, I think it can be tricky because it often things like exclusion from things like sex education is very common. So sex education in the mainstream is quite poor. And then maybe if you are not in a mainstream school or you have additional needs, then maybe you're not included in the same way. So you miss a lot of basic education around some of these things, or there might be cultural assumptions that that's not relevant for you or so on. I think there's a lot of research around how professionals might deem certain people as asexual, make assumptions about their sexualities, which isn't fair or inclusive. So I think a lot of those factors come into it. And then often around things like experience of touch as well. And if you've had a lot of hands-on care and you've had a lot of support with things like washing and dressing or toileting, and your physical needs have required that, then what does that mean for you developmentally if you're used to different touch intimately, and how to differentiate the two? So I think there's quite a lot of research going into those areas as well, about how do we explain to children what's appropriate when they might be being touched by a caregiver as well for functional tasks. So I think there's kind of a lot of broad different themes. I don't none of them particularly my speciality, but yeah, all really relevant here. I'm more than happy to put you in contact with Satvir. I know she's doing less so on intimate relationships, but more just on how we support childhood brain injury and development within mainstream schools and so on.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. So what I'll do is I'll share your email in our Zoom chat, and then if anyone has any questions, they can contact you, and you could either answer them or forward them on.
Please.
Okay.
And we just like talking and learn the most when we're talking with people with lived experience. So
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Thank you.
I've definitely learnt more in these last 2 years than I did in the 20 before as a therapist.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Anyone else have any questions or observations?
No, it's super useful though to learn about the research.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, on behalf of everyone, Jennifer, we'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so
very
much.
much.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here and the time. Yeah, thank you. And thank you to Silver Linings.